What's up everyone? So today's video I want to bring to you another seed to harvest video. This one is potatoes. So let's jump right into it. So first off, when should you plant potatoes? Well, potatoes are a cool weather crop. However, they do not like freezing temperatures. So the best time to plant it is around springtime if your local area doesn't get a hard frost during that time. Now, hard frost is basically if your area is 32 degrees Fahrenheit and below, which is freezing for more than a few hours. Now, for me personally, living in Southern California, we never get a hard frost, and quite frankly, we never really get a light frost. So specifically for my location, I can grow anywhere from October all the way through April. The only time that I can't grow potatoes is during the summertime because potatoes do not like the summer heat. So potatoes prefer to have at least 6 hours of direct sunlight. So make sure to choose a planting location or they won't be shaded out by any larger plants. So now let's talk about seed potatoes. This here is a seed potato. Now, seed potatoes differ from the potatoes you buy at your grocery store, and that's because these aren't sprayed with sprout suppressants. And a sprout suppressant is exactly what it sounds like. So the potatoes out in your grocery store are sprayed with a suppressant that prevents these sprouts here from growing. So now these are called sprouts, but other people refer to them as eyes as well. Now these sprouts are where your potato is going to be growing from. Now you can still just use a normal bag potato that you bought from the supermarket, but you might run into issues like I did.
No way.
How is that possible? So I highly suggest picking up a bag of seed potatoes if you do decide to grow some. It'll give you a better likelihood of having success. I want to mention that before you plant your seed potatoes, you're going to want to have at least one sprout coming out of the potato. If you have more than one sprout on a potato, you can cut them into pieces about the size of an ice cube. If you do cut your seed potatoes, the potatoes you harvest will be larger. But on the other hand, not cutting your potatoes tend to develop into plants that bear lots of small or medium-sized potatoes. I'm going to keep mine whole. Now, if you do cut them, you're going to want to place them on a rack so that they dry properly with the cut side facing up. Now, when it comes to planting, there's a few recommendations on how to do this. Some people use the more traditional mound style of planting, but I'm going to use the square foot gardening method. So with the square foot gardening method, you could fit more potatoes in a smaller space, and the recommendation amount for plant spacing for potatoes is 1 to 2 potatoes per 1 square foot. Now, potatoes also want to be planted 6 inches deep with the sprouts facing up. I'm going to be adding kelp meal and worm castings directly into the hole with the potato for added nutrition. And like any plant, they like to be evenly watered, so try to avoid overwatering as it can cause your potatoes to rot. 1 to 2 inches of water is fine each week, but just make sure to check your soil regularly. So 11 days after planting the seeded potatoes, that now have some sprouts. There. So I have 2 planted in this square here, but the other one, which is planted around here, hasn't sprouted. Same thing with this one here, is also 2. This one right here, but still hasn't sprouted. So a few days later, the last 2 potatoes did sprout. Now I'm adding a layer of wood chip mulch. I like to wait till the sprouts are about an inch or 2 in height before I apply a mulch. You can also use straw or other forms of mulch if you'd like. The main reason why I'm applying it is to keep in moisture and help keep the soil cool to the potatoes' liking. Now I'm opting out of hilling the potatoes, which is a process of adding more mulch to the potatoes as it continues to grow. This is 1 month later, and as you can see, they have grown quite large since sprouting. There was some aphids that I found underneath some leaves. And it's always a good idea to check your plants thoroughly, maybe once per week. But the more you're on top of an issue, the faster you can catch it before it gets out of hand. Now, when it comes to liquid fertilizers, you definitely can give it to them during the growing season. However, what I did was just apply that granular fertilizer during planting and then gave them a leaf spray of some compost tea. average, it takes 60 to 90 days for a potato to mature, depending on the variety. However, you should look at your actual seed potato bag and it'll let you know exactly how long it'll take to maturity. So how you know when to harvest is when the plant starts to die back on their own. Now some people look at the flowering of the potatoes as an indicator that your potatoes are almost ready to harvest. However, my potatoes never actually sent out any flowers, so I just waited for them to die back. You can also dig slightly below the stem to see if there's any potatoes. But the best way is to wait till the potatoes flop over and dies on their own. If you do want to take a peek at your potatoes in ground, just make sure to cover them back up, as the sun will start to deteriorate them. Now you should also stop watering a few days after you see the plants start to die off. And that's because if you're going to be harvesting them after that point, you don't want to harvest them when they're all wet and muddy. Now this was 3 days later during harvesting. I just use my hands to harvest, but if you use a garden spade or fork, try and be careful so you don't damage the potatoes. If you do encounter any green potatoes, you want to make sure to dispose of those. Green potatoes indicate the presence of solanine, which is toxic. Green potatoes develop if they are exposed to sun during the growing season. Once you harvested the potatoes, they are ready to be used in your dish. If you plan to store them, make sure not to wash them. Washing them will shorten the storage life. You can't just leave them out on the counter to fully dry. And that's basically it. So in my honest opinion, potatoes are fairly easy to grow, and with the information I've already provided you, you should be able to harvest your own. I hope this was informative to you and then also helps you get your potatoes to harvest. If you liked this video or you found it to be helpful, please don't forget to give it a like. And remember, you won't get a harvest if you don't sow seeds.